The waiting room chairs were molded plastic, designed for bodies that didn't intend to stay long. I had been in mine for 4 hours. When they wheeled my son past me toward the operating room, he tried to lift his hand like he was boarding a school bus, not being prepped for emergency surgery. 10 years old and already apologizing for causing trouble. I typed the message while the doors were still swinging shut. "He's in the OR. Please pray." Family group chat, 12 members. Aunts who forwarded inspirational quotes every morning. Cousins who debated restaurant choices for 30 minutes. My father who responded to everything with thumbs up emojis. I watched the message deliver. I watched it read. No one replied. I told myself they were busy, driving, working. In meetings, I told myself it didn't matter. The surgery stretched longer than expected. Nurses walked in and out with neutral faces that revealed nothing. The coffee machine broke. My phone battery slipped toward red. I kept checking the chat out of habit more than hope. Still nothing. Around 9 that night, I opened social media because the silence felt louder than the monitors down the hall. There they were, rooftop lights, string bulbs glowing gold against the city skyline, my cousin raising a glass. My aunt posing with her arm around my father. The caption in bold white letters, "Family first." I stared at the timestamp 2 hours after my message. I didn't feel anger. Not immediately. It was something colder. A small internal shift, like a bone settling slightly out of place. When the surgeon finally came out, he spoke in calm, efficient sentences. Complications, but manageable. Recovery would be careful. We'd need to monitor for infection. I nodded. Signed forms, asked practical questions. I didn't update the group chat. The next 3 days became fluorescent and narrow. Hospital mornings begin early and without dignity. My son hated the IV line. He tried to act brave when the nurses flushed it. Did Grandpa text? He asked once, his voice small but hopeful. Not yet, I said. I didn't lie. I just didn't elaborate. A hospital social worker introduced herself on the second day. She had a clipboard in a tone that balanced empathy with efficiency. Do you have support? She asked gently. I opened my mouth to say yes, then paused. Not nearby. I answered instead. She nodded like she'd heard that before. She helped me apply for temporary leave paperwork from work. She walked me through financial assistance forms I didn't know existed. She explained post-operative care options in plain language. Institutional procedural support, no emotion. Just structure. It felt steadier than blood. On the third night, my phone finally died in the corner of the room. I didn't bother charging it until morning. When I did, the screen flooded. 37 missed calls, mostly from my father, a few from my aunt, a text at the top. Call me immediately. It's urgent. For a moment, I thought something had happened to one of them on the way home from their party. Some dramatic accident, some irony. I stepped into the hallway before calling back. The nurse had just given my son pain medication. He was finally asleep. My father answered on the first ring. Where have you been? He demanded, voice tight. At the hospital, I said evenly. There was a beat of silence like he'd forgotten. He cleared his throat. I collapsed. That night, at the party, it was my heart. They rushed me to St. Vincent's. They think it's serious. He spoke quickly, as if the urgency itself could erase context. I need you here, he added. They're asking about decisions. I leaned against the wall. The hallway smelled faintly of antiseptic and vending machine chips. The same night, I asked quietly, yes. I tried calling you. No answer. I was in surgery with my son, I said. Another pause. Oh, he replied softer now. Right, how is he? The question sounded procedural, like checking a box. He's stable, I said. He asked about you. My father exhaled, relieved by information rather than remorse. You're listed as my emergency contact. He continued. They need consent for a catheterization. Your aunt doesn't want to sign anything. There it was. Not concern, not apology. Authority. I let him speak. I listened to the details. Blockages. Risk percentages. Urgency. Then I asked calmly, did you see my message in the family chat? Silence. We were in the middle of something, he said eventually. It was loud. It was a rooftop part. I said, not accusing, just factual. He didn't deny it. They posted photos. I added. I didn't know it was that serious, he said. You didn't say. He was in the OR, I replied. The hallway felt very long. I can't leave, I said finally. Needs me here. So what am I supposed to do? My father's voice sharpened, the old tone surfacing. You're my son. I looked through the glass panel of my son's room. He was sleeping on his side, hospital blanket pulled up to his chin. And he's mine, I said. There was frustration on the other end. I could almost see my aunt pacing near a different hospital bed. They need a decision. My father insisted. I thought of the social worker, of the paperwork she had walked me through, of how calmly she had explained that legal authority isn't emotional. It's documented. I'll speak to the cardiologist directly, I said. Put them on. There was shuffling, a new voice, professional, clear. The doctor explained the procedure and risks. He asked if I consented. I asked 3 measured questions. Not as a son, as a responsible contact. Then I said yes. My father came back on the line afterward. You're not coming? He asked again. No, I said. Another silence, heavier this time. You sound different, he observed. I am, I replied. He didn't apologize. Not fully, he said. We were just trying to relax that night. I understand, I said, and I did. That was the unsettling part. When I returned to my son's room, he was awake. Was that Grandpa? He whispered, yes. Is he okay? They're helping him, I said. He's in good hands. He studied my face like children do when they're deciding whether to worry. You're not going, he asked. No. He reached for my hand, IV tape crinkling softly. Okay. It wasn't dramatic, no swelling music, no grand declarations, just a small hand tightening around mine. The family chat started moving later that day. Updates about my father's condition. Prayer hands. Exclamation points. Relief when the procedure went well. No one mentioned my son. I muted the thread. Over the next week, my father recovered. He called twice more. The conversations were shorter, polite, careful. Something had shifted and he felt it too. When my son was finally discharged, the hospital social worker handed me a folder of follow-up appointments and said, "You handled this well." I nodded. I didn't feel heroic. I felt clear. At home, I placed my phone face down on the kitchen counter. Notifications continued to appear, lighting up the screen briefly before fading. Family first. The words meant something different now. Detachment isn't loud. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't announce itself. It's choosing where to stand when 2 hospital beds exist and only one of them holds your child. Weeks later, my father invited us to dinner once things settle. I told him we'd see. And for the first time in my life, I meant it literally, not out of spite, but because something inside me had already settled.